Men of Reddit, what's the one thing you hate about being a man? Story 1. Being completely invisible. It can be an advantage. When I want to, I can go about my day in peace, without interruptions from anybody. And sometimes you just want to slip into the background and be anonymous. But at the same time, nobody asks you how you are doing, if you need help, or acknowledge that you exist at all. If you have problems, you just have to deal with it yourself and get over it. On the plus side, you get better at problem solving, but it can be mentally tiring and demotivating at times. A lot of men are completely starved for positive attention, not just for women, but any kind of positive attention at all. The last time I heard anything positive about my appearance, it was from Grandma. It was 15 plus years ago, and I am pretty sure she was drunk. I talked with my wife about this a few years ago, and she found it very weird and sad. After that, she started to say something positive from time to time to the people she works with. The first time she did it was one of her closest co-workers. He was completely dumbfounded by it. He knew very well that it was just a friendly compliment, but he said he didn't really know how to handle it, because he could not remember the last time something like that had happened. Story 2. As a single dad, my son is generally excluded from things like park meetups or birthday parties because apparently I don't fit in with the other parents. I've probably been told it 1,000 times in 1,000 variations. What they actually mean is I'm a man, and mums don't want me around because it's generally just mums. Story 3. About a month ago, I was walking down the street in Copenhagen. It was close to midnight, and I was the only one on the street. It was dark and a bit foggy. I was minding my own business, having my headphones on. I hadn't noticed, at some point, I was walking about 15 feet behind a young woman. She was clearly walking faster, slightly looking over her shoulder at me. I understood the situation and stopped walking, pretending to look at the windows, while she had time to walk out of sight. I understand why she probably was nervous, walking alone down a dark street, with an older guy walking behind her, and as such, gave her space to get some distance between us. I also hate that that's where we are. Story 4. Being expected to romantically initiate. Back in high school, a girl approached me saying that she had a crush on me. She wanted to know if I would be interested in dating. We were working on a photography project together. I had quickly developed a crush on her. Her face was so red and her smile was so genuine, and my heart dropped to the floor. We dated for many years and got married in 2018. She is my soulmate. I have had people make little comments before saying I was cute, but that moment in particular had me flabbergasted. That was the first time someone had actually expressed having an attraction towards me. It was in between classes. I remember walking to my next class, which was PE. By the time I got to the hallway that connected to the locker room entrance, I was practically skipping with excitement over the fact that she approached me and admitted she liked me. When I got in the locker room, I had the biggest smile on my face, and my friends started asking why I was so happy. I told them, and they all had huge smiles on their face as well. Congratulations were tossed my way. Besides the day we got married, that day in particular is one of the best days of my life. I will ride that high to my grave. Story 5. If there's any one thing, it's that I never feel like I'm desired. If I don't make a move, no moves will be made. Pre-puberty, I had girls and women teasing me all the time about how I was going to be a heartbreaker. After that, I spent the rest of my years feeling invisible. Had a friend in high school whose sister was probably the prettiest girl in school. Total tomboy because she had a bunch of brothers. Had no fear of telling it like it is. One day she turned to me and said that other girls found me to be unapproachable. So I guess the topic of me came up at some point. Maybe someone tried asking her about me or something. I don't know. Something about me gives off the don't even try vibe. So I either approach or it ain't happening. Story 6. As a teenager, I've worked at a summer camp for 5 summers. One year, there was that kid that enjoyed playfully running away from you when it was time to lead him back to his parents at 6 p.m. He had his favorite monitor, a female co-worker of mine, with whom he loved playing this game. A day it happened I was the closest to said kid, so I ran after him, picked him up like a bag of potatoes, and upon arriving to the boy's mother, she proceeded not only to start walking towards me from the waiting desk, but also to snatch the kid off my arms, with that mean look of "Don't touch my boy, you weirdo," when she'd laugh with my coworker, bringing her boy on one of her shoulders. Glad to say that when it was my turn to manage the waiting desk, she'd wait for a solid 20 minutes for her kid as I was desperately calling his name, but is not easy to catch. I was just playing and playing for extended amounts of time the end of day dad game with him. Story 7. Baldness. I miss having hair to run my fingers through. In my teen years I grew it out because I knew I wouldn't have it for the rest of my life. I miss playing with it. I miss the warmth and the cooling. I miss the sense of it being blown in the wind. I miss the slight protection against bumps and scrapes. When I had a girlfriend, one of the nice things she would do would be to drape our hair over my head so I could reimagine having hair. Story 8. My brother was in a relationship like this. I am just glad I had my phone recording and pretended to be on it. She was punching him and kicking him up, even threw a vase at his head, and he had a little slit cut. After this, she went into the bathroom with a knife, which I got on video, and she gave herself flesh wounds. When the cops arrived because of a noise complaint, they checked my brother, me and her. All of us intoxicated. She pulled the "I'm the victim," and I told them to examine my brother's head, the bruises on his face and body. When they took them both to the hospital, I told the last cop walking out I have video evidence that he is the victim, and he asked for a copy of the video after watching it. She ultimately got sent to a mental hospital after sitting in jail for aggravated assault and domestic violence charges, and my brother was released after stitches in his head, and he immediately filed a restraining order and a bunch of other shit to keep her away from him. Story 9. Constant pressure to be strong, to take care of everything. I cannot show emotion or weakness, because people will think less of me. I cannot have problems, cannot open up about them. I cannot hold my daughter's hand while walking down the street without getting weird looks. Cannot show love to my daughter in public. I cannot stress. I am supposed to carry everything on my shoulders, because I am a man. I cannot break. I am supposed to be stone cold, never tired machine. I cannot cry, stress, be tired, show love. I can't do anything. The only place I can be myself when I am alone. I can cry, I can be stressed, I can be tired of everything and be broken. I hate that. It's hard. Never in my life anyone prepared me for this. I've never known it will be this difficult. If not for my daughter, I would be dead already. I love her so much, I owe my life to her. Story 10. The default assumption that all men are creeps and assholes and automatically guilty of harassment. Not too long ago I was sitting in a bar. I'm contracted to look after their IT equipment. Sat at a table, laptop plugged into a network rack, coffee beside me, configuring a new advertising display device hooked to one of the screens that happens to be above a table which was occupied by a couple youngish women. Obviously, I can't sit at the table because the rack is on the other side of the room and the display device is in the rack. But I need to look at the screen feedback while I'm doing my thing. These two women actually complained to management that I was harassing them by looking in their general direction, and it took the owner of the bar to come down from the office and explain to them that I was working on the display above them, and they continued to complain about it. They even threatened to call the police for harassment and feeling unsafe. All I wanted to do was finishing my work and go home. I barely even registered their existence. I ended up having to stay an extra 2 hours and wait for them to go before I could complete my work. Story 11. That we are only loved and respected conditionally. I mostly feel loved or needed for what I can do or what I know, not just for myself. I have grown-up kids and they call their mom just to talk and share. We are still married. They call me when something is broken and they need help fixing it. Don't get me wrong, I am glad they call at all. But very seldom does anyone call to find out how I am doing, or what's new with me, or to share something interesting they experienced. I go out of my way to call them individually quite regularly. But other than me initiating calls and asking direct questions, I only find out what is happening in their lives from my wife, not from them. Story: well, recently, a friend of mine and I went to a restaurant. She drank a lot, was very annoying, dancing, shouting, talking to other guests. Just generally some questionable behavior. She proceeds to drink so much that she had to take a nap right there at the table. Keep in mind we all are acquainted with the owners for years, so it was kind of fine. The bar closes and she cannot get up. She just says no loudly and lies there. I have to stay with her. I called her a taxi, but she couldn't get up, so I had to pay the taxi. Then another hour goes. We are there until 3 a.m. and she finally proceeds to get up. I pay for another taxi for her and she gets home only to come back an hour later. While in that restaurant, I had a discussion with another guest that every aspect of this would never happen if she was a man. She wouldn't be allowed to sleep in the restaurant, wouldn't be allowed to annoy the guests and dance around, wouldn't be allowed to let us all stay there to watch over her until 3 a.m. It really pissed me off how much privilege she has without realizing it. How she just accepts the good deeds around her to make her comfortable. And that's what I hate about being a man. Nobody cares about me this much and I have to look after myself or I will be treated with frustration and annoyance.